Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Relationship Master Series. We're going to be focusing on principles for passionate life and relationships and dynamite families. And I've been able to gather 25 different experts from all over the world, actually. And that's wonderful because it is points of view from all over the world. And as usual, we find we have a lot more in common than we have that differentiates us. And some of the common issues that come up in relationships seem to cross borders. So that's going to be fun to explore also. And we're going to have each of the experts talk about their experience and their own relationship to this topic, and in terms of how to be able to find passionate relationships, how to heal them if they've gotten into trouble, and how to sustain them. And today I'm really excited that I'm going to have on the show with me Kyle Benson. And I want to welcome you, Kyle, and I'm going to introduce you a bit. Kyle is a nationally recognized couples mindset coach, and he provides practical research-based tools to build lasting relationships. He's best known in his work for his own compassionate, non-judgmental style, and I think you'll see that as we begin talking, and his capacity to be able to get to the root of a problem. Kyle has made a point to study how partners in healthy relationships talk to each other, how they have passionate sex, and how they stay emotionally connected. He's been featured in Business Insider, U.S. News, Huffington Post, and many other publications. And I want to let the audience know that at the end of the program, Kyle is going to be offering a free gift. And so remember to stay to the very end when I will be able to tell you exactly how to get that gift. And so I'd like to jump right into it. And Kyle, it's wonderful to have you on the program, and welcome. It's good to be talking with you again.
It's good to be talking with you too. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you. I want to first get into knowing a bit about your story and how you actually came to be in this field of relationships. And so tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's quite a story. So about almost 5 years now, I was in a relationship with what I would call an emotionally unavailable partner. And what I mean by that is I didn't feel like a priority. I felt really needy. I felt really insecure. And prior to that, I just left another relationship in which I was cheated on for 6 months. And I dated the person for 3 years. And so our relationships, they develop our mindsets. They develop the way we perceive ourselves and the way we perceive our partners and other people. And so going through some of these experiences led me to taking on some beliefs about myself. And what happened in that next relationship, where my partner was best friends with her ex, and really kind of made me feel secondary. One of the ways I really tried to step up or prove myself worthy of her love was I started working a lot. He was really successful, and I was trying to make my kind of own foot in the door in a way, and started working 100 hours a week, and I did this for about 9 months.
Wow.
I was working a full-time job, running a business on the side, and just like my anxiety and my insecurity was just like on full bore. What ended up happening is I ended up starting getting sick. And one of the stuff that the research shows is kind of if we're in unsafe relationships where we feel really insecure, it does have a really big impact on our bodies. And so I went through this whole health issue for the past 4 years, in which I've had psoriasis. I had like my eyes would swell up from inflammation in my body. Wow. I had to have like a bunch of surgeries on that. And like during this process, like during the first probably 3 months when I had already lost like 30 pounds in 6 weeks and just a whole bunch of stuff going wrong, I was like, what happened? How did I get here? And the first book I picked up was Attached by Amir Levine. and it talks all about attachment theory.
Mm.
It's really where kind of a lot of my beliefs and the focus on mindset came from. And so I started reading, and I started kind of researching, how did I become this way? How did I have the relationships that I have? I'm really starting to try to change my own mindset and working with my own therapist. And then I started writing about it for myself, and then editors from publications started picking it up, and next thing I know, people were wanting to work with me.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, and I'm really glad for you that you connected in with that, and right off the bat got into some very, very important deep work that is very important information for people to have, and it's amazing how few people really recognize the importance that attachment is.
Yeah.
It's almost too obvious,
It is. Well, and like John Gottman, he always talks about how having a really healthy relationship is almost better for your health than going to the gym. Just because of having that connection, having the safety and the security and the bond there, and making it playful and fun is really good for your health.
Yeah, very definitely. And I hope that that's something that, as you've learned and everything, that your health, you're looking pretty healthy as you're sitting there right now. I hope that's really been something that's improved for you.
It has. It's not quite 100%, but it's slowly getting better.
Great. Could you talk a little bit more about, because I know, and I don't know if it is a term that you picked up somewhere else, but when you speak about unsafe haven, could you talk a little bit more about what that means to you?
Yeah, so it's kind of not having a partner that really makes you feel secure. So there's two different kind of approaches or my ideas in attachment theory. The one is to have a secure base, and then one is to have a safe haven. And when our partners are not a safe haven for us to return to when something goes wrong in our life, when we're having a stressful event, adds to our anxiety. We are wired to actually become soothed with our partners. And it's much easier to soothe with our partner than it is to actually self-soothe. And so that's kind of a little bit what I talk about is really building a relationship where both partners become experts on each other. And so when your partner comes in the door, they're having a stressful day, and things don't really feel safe or chaotic for them, they can come to you, and it's almost like whether they give you a hug or they sit down with wine and have a drink with you, you're able to help regulate them and get them to kind of soothe and relax. And one of the conversations that I have couples do is what is called the stress reducing conversation. And it's just anywhere from a 15-minute to 30-minute conversation where you're talking about the stresses outside of the marriage or the relationship, and the other partner that's listening is really attuning to you. And so they're really going, it makes a lot of sense to me that you're feeling that way. And like, I totally can understand like how you can see that. Gosh, like that's so tough. And like what we notice in the research too is it helps partners kind of go, like it's almost like a big exhale in their body, just this relax, like someone gets me. Like this is okay for me to feel. And that's really that's one component that I really talk about. It's really important to have that base and that safe haven for you to return to.
Right. I mean, very much so. And it's amazing. I mean, the research that's out there on that now, and I do a lot of work directly with brain waves and with heart rhythms and brain blood flow and that kind of thing. And if you have somebody hooked up, and the effect of, particularly if it's a good relationship, if that partner or the spouse walks into the room or holds their hand or something, it's amazing what starts to happen in a very, very positive way. And of course, the opposite is true too. And as you were alluding to earlier in terms of your own personal story, when that's not there, it really throws things off, and we get sick.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's that disconnection. It's the dis-ease. Like I call it the disease of relationship, but it's like the dis-ease of not being connected with someone. And it really impacts us. And the stuff that you're doing and talking about how, just biologically, you can see the responses in the heart rates and the brain waves. Like it's powerful.
Right, right. Now, can you talk a bit more about easy ways that a couple can make sex more intimate and romantic? I know that's a question on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
And so if you could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd love to. So what's really interesting is kind of the approaches of sex. Often men like to use sex for connection. So to have sex is a way to make emotional connection.
Mm-hmm.
For women, they need emotional connection to have sex. So that's kind of an initial barrier that I see with some of the couples I work with. It's not always a man and a woman in that sense, or that gender isn't necessarily applicable to both partners in that way, but that's something that does come up. And so it's really starting to look, especially with the man, okay, like, let me become emotionally attuned to my partner. Let me understand what's going on in her world. And even what's really interesting is I find with the husbands that I work with, is they start to actually feel more close, and like even the sex becomes a lot better too. And so really kind of having sex, really good sex, is about emotional connection. Mm-hmm. And like I joke about, right, if you're in the grocery store with your partner and they say, oh, we're out of butter, right, you have the choice of saying, go and be like, okay, like no big deal. Or you can say, oh, well, let me go grab some. And the fact of being on the same page as your partner and turning towards them really kind of builds that. And then in addition to kind of really building the friendship of the relationship, the goal is to actually start to actually talk about sex. A lot of couples don't talk about sex. And so it's this really edgy, uncomfortable area. And I have a bunch of exercises on my site where I have conversations that couples can have, and start to get kind of the conversation going. It's sometimes it might, it's just trying to figure out, okay, what am I comfortable with? What am I not? And really starting to understand your own body as you understand your partner's. Another really important concept is to actually make it okay to say no. Because if your partner cannot say no, they're more likely not to say yes. Mm-hmm. And it's what I call the paradox of yes and no. Because if it's not safe for them to say no, their body is not going to be really wanting to desire or really get into sex. And so working with that and making it okay for partners to be like, okay, I'm not really feeling it right now, or my body's not really feeling it, is really important. And also letting the partner that's being rejected to help them not take it personally. Because often what happens is when one partner does say no and these things have not been talked about, the partner that's rejected takes it very personally. And it means a bunch of things about them. Oh, I'm not desirable, I'm not attractive, da 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 da. And they go down this negative spiral that really puts them in a dark place. And so it's kind of working through that. And really starting to connect the couple over creating kind of rituals of what it looks like. And the third thing another really important thing that I work with couples on is creating either a scale or some type of nonverbal way of initiating sex. There's a famous sex researcher, I'm blanking on her name right now, but she has a scale from 1 to 9. And so one partner can go, hey, you know what, I'm feeling like an 8 right now, which means I'm really excited. I'm really interested in you. And the other partner is like, you know what, I'm kind of like at a 4 or 5, but you could probably convince me. And just allowing their room to be desire and differences in desire to be within the relationship.
Yeah, that feels like a very, very important piece. So it's not just a on-off, yes, no. It's an opportunity for intimacy. And in that dialogue, the intimacy becomes very often a turn on, or at least it gives you information so that you can become a bit more of an expert on your partner, the way that you were mentioning earlier in the program, which is so essential. Be really curious with your partner. Don't ever shut off that curiosity, because you're going to shut off the juice as soon as you do. So there's so much more going on in that partner than you'll ever learn in a lifetime. So stay curious, and you'll get more and more intimate.
Yeah, well, and it's realizing there's, I think, as you kind of named, get that curiosity. What is going on for them that is not allowing them to be desirable right now? Not having that desire.
Mm-hmm.
Are they really stressed about work? Is something with the kids bugging them? Maybe instead of connecting sexually, you can give them a massage. Maybe it's a conversation, right? There's other ways to have intimacy that then make the sex so much better. And it's getting curious about, okay, what do they need right now? How can I help them? Okay, maybe they need some space. Maybe that's and trying to figure out what's going to work for them. And like I said, being really playful and curious about, okay, how can we become experts on each other, just as you were naming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point. Yeah, if you're pressing your partner too much, they can't even reach out their arms, So you got to give them an opportunity. And sometimes it's exactly what you're saying is give them space and you'll be amazed to see what can happen. So what about in situations that you've encountered where one of the partners is really an angry partner, and the other partner is confused about how to deal with the anger? I mean, they can jump right in and try to meet the anger, but that goes an awful place. So what do you suggest around that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that come with that. Often, sometimes I see with anger is one of the partners really angry, and the other partner just wants to diffuse it. They want it gone. They want it disappeared. They take it as like, again, it's this kind of reflection of like, oh, what's this mean about me? My partner's angry with something that's in our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and there's almost this withdrawal. I need to get away from this, or I need to diffuse it. I need to put water on the fire. But our emotions are signals of what we value. And underneath anger, I kind of look at anger as an iceberg, right? On the surface, we have this anger, this frustration, and it's being expressed. And underneath it is this sadness, it's the loneliness, it's anxiety, it's our real fears. And so when you attune to your partner's anger and go, gosh, it makes a lot of sense why you're angry about this. I would feel angry about that too. And then get curious of like, okay, what else is coming up for you? What other emotions are you having? And I see anger as almost like a coating of kind of the softer secondary emotions that are really vulnerable, because it's protective. And that's what anger's purpose is, right? When we get angry, our blood flows to our fists and like we're very like tense and we want to protect ourselves.
Right.
So it's putting your partner, one, being able to let anger be okay and not saying, oh, you need to calm down, you need to get this, but going, gosh, like, tell me about this. Gosh, that sounds like so hard. Like I'd be angry too. And like really empathizing with what they're feeling, which then allows them to, in a way, almost start to calm down themselves. And then you get the curious part and go, okay, well, what else is coming up for this? What does this mean about you? What does this mean? And then they start to disclose more of what's going on. Well, my boss, didn't give me the promotion, and that means, all my hard work makes me a failure. And so it's really getting into that deeper level of what's going on for them. And when you can sit with your partner in your anger, in their anger, it can lead to a lot more intimacy as well, because you're allowing them to feel all the emotions they're feeling without dismissing it or making it feel like it's inappropriate for them to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is an extension of holding the hand. It's holding the heart and holding the emotions. And yeah, instead of getting anger in general, it begins to melt, or at least you begin to understand it and how you might be able to support your partner at a time like that.
Right.
Now, you wrote a blog that caught my eye, and I really love you to go into it. I know it's has parts that interrelate with what we've been talking about for sure, but you speak about the magic 6 hours that make love last, and right. I think that's a great title, and the content is really awesome. So I'd love you to share that.
Yeah. So the Magic 6 Hours was created by John Gottman. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a staff member on the Institute. And what we found, we do these really powerful workshops where we get, 400 couples into a room and we're working with them on improving their relationships over weekends. And what we started doing, we started figuring out, okay, what are they applying outside of the workshop? How are they using it? How are they using the tools we're giving them? And what we found is the couples that improved tended to spend about 6 hours a week improving their marriage or their relationship.
So that's 6 hours a week when you're saying the 6 hours.
Right. And
that's
so it's
not an awful lot of time.
No, it's not an awful lot of time. But it does matter. And it really kind of comes in little increments too. Like, one of the things that we talk about is having rituals of connection. And it's like when you leave in the morning, ask your partner something interesting about their day, right? Get that curiosity part of like, okay, what's going on for you? What do you have that's exciting today? And having something that kind of builds kind of these open-ended questions and what we call a love map. And what we mean by a love map is the cognitive space you have in your brain for your partner's inner world, and being able to create that space. And we find that really improves relationships when partners have a really detailed love map of each other. The next thing that we found was really important is to have that stress reducing end of the day talk. We talked about that, you and I talked about that earlier in the conversation today. But it's having that 15 to 30 minutes where you're sitting down and you're attuning to each other and you're understanding, okay, what's going on for you? What's going on for me? And really empathizing with each other. And then the other two things that are really important within that is to have a date night. It's going out and having fun. My big belief is really being intentional about your time and your priorities and making your relationship one of those. Some couples, they can only do it twice a month because of kids, but making it a priority to be with your partner, to get to know them, to court them, to really continue to develop the relationship, because that's how you got to know each other. That's what caused you to fall in love. That's what caused you to get married or start to date each other. And when that starts to decline and when you put other priorities ahead of that, right, that's when the passion fades. That's when that emotional connection fades. And by being intentional about creating that date night, you create the space for intimacy, for emotional connection. And that, as we have seen, gives us ways to make our relationship last. And then the last thing that I really love is what we call a state of the union conversation. It's also what I call a relationship review conversation. So once a week, you're meeting for about an hour and you're talking about the positives and negatives of your relationship. And typically what this looks like is you sit down, you say 5 things you're grateful for in your relationship or what your partner has done for you that week. And this gets your mind in a little bit opener, like more of an open state, because you're about to dive into conflict. And it's what I call the warm up to the conflict. And then from there, right, one partner becomes the speaker and one partner becomes the listener. And you pick a topic that has been kind of present in your relationship and you work through that. And so the listener has the responsibility of making sure they talk in such a way that it doesn't trigger their partner. So they talk about their experiences, their feelings, usually about a very specific event, and then naming a positive need. And what I've seen is that's a recipe, for success, because you're telling your partner, hey, this is what I'm feeling. I'm not blaming you for this. This is just my experience. Here's what this is about. It's a very specific thing that we can work with or that we've been dealing with. And here's actually what I need. Often what couples do is like, I don't need you to be this. I don't need you to do that. And it's very difficult for the other partner to go like, okay, what do I do with that? And by having the positive need of what they really want, it makes it a lot easier to take on. And then the listener is really trying to understand. They're trying to empathize with the partner. And this, we've just kind of seen this over time, is it actually, and even the couples I work with, kind of following this model makes almost the problem solve itself. And it's really fascinating.
Yeah, that's powerful. Those elements together really do weave something very powerful. And I was thinking of a couple of things about that. I mean, one aspect is things begin to shift from being problems, and just the problems that get bigger and bigger as you go down the rabbit hole together. And when you can approach your partner the way you were just suggesting, it becomes a couple who are solution oriented about how can we solve this for each other? How can I help you solve that? Rather than my just telling you what I think, you guide me and know that you're going to have my support.
Right.
But let me know a little bit more about you.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's that's what I talk about. It's like being on the same team. And often one of the things I joke about is as I say this phrase of check your jersey. And my imagination is underneath every shirt or clothes that couples are wearing, there's a basketball jersey, the same color. But often what happens is we're passing the ball to the team that's of misunderstanding, and we're not on each other's team. And so by checking your jersey, going, what are we missing? How are we not understanding each other? You start to pass the ball back and forth with each other, and you start to score points against, the misunderstanding, the disconnection, and other things that are blocking you from being on the same team. And what's cool is when you start to do that, when you start to work together through your struggles, the research has shown that you actually start to glorify the struggles and see it as a thing that has brought you closer together and made you stronger as a couple.
Yeah,
and
what a shift. What a shift.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And like when I get to hear the couples that talk about that, it's like, oh, it's so great to just hear what they've gone through and how it brought them closer together. And you can just see them light up, and like even some really difficult stuff, like it's amazing.
Yeah, another thing that you were talking about in terms of date night, and I think every relationship concerned person out there really recognizes how vitally important that is to a relationship, having that time that really is the two of you. And I've had many instances where a couple were actually saying, oh, we can't do it because we have the kids, and this kid's having this problem with this one, and so we just can't do it. And then with encouragement, they finally begin to do it. And lo and behold, when it's done with love and in a way that demonstrates to the kids the depth of feeling that the two parents have toward each other, oddly enough, some of these problems the kids were having start to disappear. It's like a newfound confidence that develops out of, wow, mom and dad are really connected. And when I'm connected with the homes where that's not the case, and it's very much the opposite, where mom and dad are not on the same team, they look like they want to kill each other. The kids become very dysregulated in those situations, and problems arise. You can send them off to residential camps or whatever else. As soon as they come back, if those problems are there, your kids are going to be right back in it. And so, again, it's that recognizing how vitally important to the whole family that energy is, and that connection between the parents.
Yeah, no, and it's so true. And I always believe that the kids take on the anxiety in the relationship.
Yeah,
they're noticing that. They're picking up on the energies, the way you talk to each other, the way you communicate. And their own ways of acting out are sometimes expressions of the emotions they've taken on, or of what they're witnessing in the family.
Yeah.
As you named, like as you start to clean up your marriage and clean up your relationship and really create that passion, that connection, the kids also become a lot more happier, a lot more joyful. They want to spend more time around you, and they like the whole family improves.
Yeah, it's again, it's an extension. This begins to feel like a safe haven. The home is a safe place, rather than a place that the kids say, I can't stand being here. All I can do is shut my door and get on some games, because I don't want to interact with what's going on out there.
Exactly.
So oh my gosh, I'm realizing the time is flying by. It's been very interesting, and I think you and I could go on for a long time talking. We have a whole series ourselves here. But I am going to need to bring this to a close, and I know some of our audience also has things that they will be needing to get to. But before we stop, is there any last thing that you would like to say, or any particular, if you were going to give one tip to a couple in terms of something to make a difference in their relationship in a positive way, what might that be?
Yeah, I think it's going back to building that friendship. I find in the research that's the biggest thing we find. It's if you have a strong friendship, it makes conflict a lot better. And you also got to face the conflict and figure out what that looks like. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to do, and also with the Gottman Institute, and I know you are trying to do, and all of us are trying to do, is kind of change the stigma around couples therapy. In the research, we found that the average couple waits 6 years to get help in dealing with a problem. That's a long time for a lot of things to go wrong.
Really?
And so if you're feeling like things are not connecting, if things are kind of wrong, and it's been a little bit, it's okay to go get some help. And there's a lot of really qualified quality therapists out there. Yeah, and then the last thing for me is I have an awesome challenge. I call it the Intimacy 5 Challenge. It's 5 challenges that I have couples do. It's a really fun exercise, and it can be also a little bit intense. And you'll get to kind of play with what intimacy looks like in your relationship, what makes you feel uncomfortable, what is really comfortable for you, and it'll actually see what it's like to be really close to your partner.
That's great. That sounds like a wonderful challenge to take on. And in terms of your free gift, I want to, is that included in what you were just describing, or do you have another free gift that you're offering?
Yeah, no, that was the free gift I was offering.
Okay, I wanted to be sure. It sounded to me like, oh my gosh, that's a wonderful thing he's offering right there. Is he going to do something else? But I really appreciate you offering that. And to tell you the truth, I mean, that's something that piqued my interest, and I think I'll ask my wife to join me in doing the challenge. I appreciate that a lot. And I want to thank you and thank the audience, and remind the audience that right after this interview, there'll be a place for you to be able to click to be able to receive the free gift. And so I want to encourage you all to look for that. It'll be very obvious. Just click on that to be sure to get Kyle's great gift. And I encourage you all to take that challenge. And so, again, thanks everyone for showing up today. And thanks again, Kyle, for being a part of this. And I wish you the best as you continue to do your good work out there. I appreciate it. The planet needs it. And in closing, I just want to remind everyone that the planet really does need your specific love and your specific light to be complete and to heal itself. So please bring your kindness and speak your truth. We all need it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.